Hi everyone, I'm Laura, and I'm an addict and alcoholic, and I'm very grateful to be here. Paul asked me just the other day, so here I am, because I do what God wants me to do, because I work for God today. And I don't even know what step it is on, because I didn't know till I sat down, which I also like, because then the ego doesn't get a chance to come in and flare my defects up. I put my head down before, and I asked Source to come through me. And so what I say, it's not me. Anyways, my sobriety date is October 5th, 1988. And I have been through this process with two big book step study sponsors, A Loving God, of which I am awakened. Thank you, God. I continue to do the latter steps, and I have done all my amends to the best of my ability. So, just briefly, I know quite a bit of you here, but just like all of you, I drank too much, I drugged too much, I ended up in AA. I went to AA for 21 years, and there was no big book step study back then. There wasn't around here, where I'm from the Leominster area, Lunenburg. And so we had AWOLs, and I did a couple of those, and I did AA, and don't drink, go to meetings, ask for help, whatever the hell that meant, We would get to like step 3, and the 12 and 12, I thought the 12 and 12 was doing the steps. I really did. I think everybody thought that. And they were up on the walls, and I'm like, okay, yep. No, I'm not doing amends, because I don't owe anyone an apology. Everyone shit on my life. Really, right? We're victims, right, to beat the band. And I'm still like pointing out for me, like, it's his fault, it's her fault, my mother, my father, everything. And I'm doing AWOLs, but what happens in an AWOL, I did a couple of AWOLs, but what happens in an AWOL is you do each step for 2 weeks, and by the time you get to 4, you do it for 2 weeks, and you move on to 5, and you're like, oh, screw it, I'll get it next time around. And I never really did a thorough 4. So then I did a 4 through Hazelton, like 850 questions, I don't know, like crazy questions. Someone had handed it to me, and I wrote, when I got a chance, because, I'm running the show, so I ain't got time to do this kind of step work stuff, right? I got a family at this point. And I was when I came into AA, good things did happen. I put the drink down, I got a sponsor, I was told what to do. My first sponsor drank, so it kind of shattered me. I got a second sponsor, she's still my sponsor 30 years later. She's got 44 years. She was on me all the time. There was no, I say it a lot today, AA seems to be sugar-coated a lot. Like, don't say this, you could hurt someone's feelings, don't say that. That wasn't going on when I was getting sober. I was like, the old timers were like, sit down, shut your mouth. No one cares what you think. And if I'd be speaking about a certain thing, they'd come up to me later and go, you need to share that with your sponsor. We understand you're crazy, we all are. Keep your crazy to your sponsor. And I would be so offended, right? Because I get like defects flaring all over the place. And all I'm thinking, and I know everyone in this room can relate, is I'm sitting in those meetings and I'm like, please, someone fix me. Just fix me. And I'm going year after year, why do I still feel unsafe? Why do I still feel unloved and unworthy? Will someone just please fix me? So I meet a guy, I'm making sure I'm not dating an AA because I'm told not to do that. I don't know why I listened in the beginning, but I did. And the old timers would take me under their wing and say, Laura, don't date in AA. This is called shitting where you eat. And that's what I would say when someone would ask me, oh, sorry, I don't shit where I eat. And I had my son with me, and he was 8 years old when I got sober. And this was life and death for us. I went into rehab, and he would come to meetings with me. And then he didn't want to go to meetings with me, and my sponsor would call me, and there was no sugarcoating anything. She's like, where the hell were you? And I'm like, listen, I had my son, I couldn't get anyone to watch him. She goes, you bring him to meetings. So I brought my son to meetings, and he sat in that corner, and he colored, and I bribed him with ice cream, and I went out later with other people, and I did what I was told. There was ashtrays in, I picked up the ashtrays, I swept the floor. I immediately, at 3 months, my sponsor's like, you're going on commitments, not you should, you're going on commitments. I was forced to get into the center of AA. It was always told to me, if you stay on the outskirts, you will get picked off. And so that always stayed with me. And I knew, because I had tried to commit suicide, and I knew this was it for me. So I was pretty desperate. And then I met someone, because I worked in the phone company and I was put on a blind date, and I met this person, and he was very passive, so he was easily controllable. Let's not lie. And he shut his mouth, so we got married. And, and we had 2 kids. And this was my dream, to have a second chance, to have a second marriage, to, because my first marriage was all drinking and drugging and volatile, and have children. And I thought, okay, this is it. And of course, you know, as we all know in here, who does Big Book Step Study, we get stuff handed back to us. So God, source, whatever you want to call it, goes, here we go. Your guides go, here's some good stuff for you, because you're trying to line up with me. And then it seems as if the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. But does it? No. I roll the friggin' rug up and kick that away. That's what I do if I'm not doing this process or doing spiritual work. So we're chugging along pretty good. He's shutting his mouth. He's behaving, you know. The kids start growing up, and they're starting to change and contrast and turn into these little humans. And now no one's following the script. They're just not. Like, here's the stage. What's the problem? Here's the script. You know, it says it all through the Big Book. We think that we're the director, right? We think these are our actors. And what happens when you keep telling the actor what to do? They are forced to retaliate. They're forced to retaliate because they're human. And they have guides just like we do. I believe we all came here with angels' guides, whatever you want to call it. And their guide is telling them, And so that's what happened. So now I'm 20 years sober, 21 years sober, and I'm sitting in meetings. Verizon is pummeling me because it's a stressful job, and I'm refusing to cut back because I'm not doing it. I'll just work more hours. That's what I'll do. I'll just sell more shit. I'll show them how awesome I am because we're people pleasers. So I'm like #1 sales, of course, and still not getting the recognition, right? Because there's a soul in my hole, the hole in my soul, and I don't even know it's there. I think I'm going to AA. I'm doing the 12 and 12. I got to be okay. And I'm sitting in meetings and I'm thinking how restless, irritable, and discontent I am. And I'm thinking, this is it. I remember sitting there thinking, this is it. Kill me now. This is the rest of my life. Not having affection anymore for like the last 6 years of my marriage. I walk in the room, he'd walk out. My middle child becomes me, my mirror. She starts not drinking and drugging, but just being a gnarly bitch. I even say to her today, guys, I'm like, oh, grasshopper, grab the pebble from my hand. You have learned so well to be the gnarly bitch. I'm so proud. You know, and she'll laugh, but it's the truth, right? We teach them how to treat us. We teach people how to treat us. And the actors come up to show me what's in me. So now all the actors are coming forward because my guides are like clunk, clunk, clunk. I think the first time, I'm very spiritual. So the first time, and I wasn't, but because of this I am. The first time I come into AA, I believe is my first awakening. And I believe I set that alarm clock on the other side before I incarnated. That's just my opinion. So my guides go, wake up, Laura. And so I go into AA because I'm hitting the bottom, right? I'm at the bottom of my life. And I go into AA and life starts getting good. And I get complacent because that's what we do, right? We're alcoholics. And that ego, the defects of character, they're flying all over the place. But I'm like, hey, I'm not drinking. And I'm going to meetings, and on step 3, I'm going, how do you turn things over? And people are like, you know, just like a cup, you just like flip it over. And like, if you say something or you're mean, you just let it go, and then you're fine. So I'm going home, and I'm annihilating my husband and my children. But I'm looking at them, and they're like, I'm like, let it go. I let it go. Like, what's the problem? I've let it go. I was like, I'm really like, I'm serious at this point, right? Because I'm like a puppet. Like, I don't know what you need me to be. I was always a chameleon my whole life. Always, who do you need me to be? Just please don't leave or die. That's all I need you to not do. And so, you know, my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, he even said later, you're whipping emotional darts, Laura, and I'm pulling them out. You're throwing them, I'm pulling them out. You're throwing them, I'm pulling them out. Till he just shuts down. And he was shut down as it was, but now we're talking shut down like doesn't even exist. I walk in the room, he walks out of the room. He walks in the room, I walk out of the room. And we're like really bad roommates. I'm at meetings, my job is sucking, I'm getting suspended. Because I can't shut my mouth. I can't shut my mouth, right? I just can't shut my mouth. And I'm sitting in meetings going, why can't I shut my mouth? Which is step 6 and 7. I don't even know that these defects are or what they are because I lived off fear. I was a bucket of fear until I did the Big Book Step Study and I got to the turnarounds and I saw how pathetic my thinking was. And so until then, I'm sitting in meetings, and then it took this person to say, I don't like you. I can't stand you, actually. And I'm in a meeting bawling my eyes out, and I thank God from the bottom of my heart that 3 of my friends who knew me had the guts. And I was, at that point, when I was hurt, I went from hurt to anger to rage. That was my motive. That was my whole thing. Hurt, anger, rage. And I was very rageful. And someone had the guts to come up to me and say, Laura, you got untreated alcoholism. And I was so mad because I had 21 years of sobriety. As we all know, sobriety and recovery are 2 different things. And they said, you need to go to Big Book Step Study. Now, I had been invited to Big Book Step Study by TK and Diana, who brought it up here from Hyannis. And I was like, I ain't got time for that shit. You guys don't have kids. I got kids. I'm working. You know? And they just shake their head. And I heard it, right? So here's the second alarm clock that I'm talking about. So now my guides, right? They're like, just get on your knees and put your hands together and just ask God to guide you. Now I believe, and I've learned this from a woman that teaches Course of Miracles that I do, that when I put my hands together and I put my head down and I ask to be guided, I'm literally giving my guides permission to wake me up. And in comes the light through my crown chakra and just starts jumbling everything up. Because what do they say in AA? We're bringing all the shit up, right, from the sewer. That's why if you start writing and you stop, it gets real colorful real fast. And I was telling him there's been people who have committed suicide after doing the work. And why? Because they don't continue to enlarge their spiritual life. So now you're wide open, awake. Your light is wide open after doing step 5. It isn't like the light came in. The light's always been there. It was just capped down. So now you're aware. Just like when you didn't know when you came into AA that you were an alcoholic. Now you know. And now it's like you can say before you did Big Book Step Study, I didn't know that I was hurting people. I really didn't, because my ex said, how could you not know you were causing harm? I said, I honestly did not. I did not. And most of my harm was done in sobriety. I'm not going to lie. And so I was desperate. And I was desperate and manipulative because, like, what's my biggest character defect is manipulation, right? And it says it in the Big Book. First, I'll be really grandiose to you and really kind. I'll people please the hell out of you and give you everything. And then if you don't behave, now the bitch has to come out. Now I got to flip the page. Now I got to go into full-on rage and control. And I used to even say it in my house. I'd be like, now I got to be a bitch. Hope you're all happy. Like, it's their fault. And I really believed it was their fault, that if they would behave, these defects would calm down. And I never knew that I wasn't supposed to know what my defects were, that God would take care of them. I'm listing them when I'm doing the 12 and 12, and I'm, praying to get rid of these. Well, first of all, fear is never going away till they incinerate me or close the coffin. It's never going away. The ego is always there. In fact, fear can be a good thing. You step in front of a car, not a good idea. Fear tells you don't do that. Put your hand on the stove, don't do that. That's where fear is good. But for me, and being an alcoholic, everything became fear. So when I wrote my fear list, I was afraid of being married, afraid of not being married, afraid of having kids, afraid of not having kids. I read all that stuff in my 5th, and then I get to my 6th and my 7th, and there I do think the 12 and 12 is very important because it's so short in here. The 12 and 12 will show you. And also there's a book called Drop the Rock, which is about step 6 and 7, and it's awesome. And now I get to look at these defects that I've written down, and I'm like, holy shit. And now I'm aware. And now I can't, if I stop going to Big Book Step Study at this point, I'm worse than I was before I did the work. Because my channel's open. I'm already feeling kind of, I don't want to say suicidal, but melancholy. I'm feeling melancholy because I've caused so much harm that I never meant to harm, especially my children, And so if I don't continue to enlarge my spiritual life, I keep going to Big Book Step Study, and I'm reading in here. And now I'm doing the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer because I was told to do the 3rd step prayer while I was writing. So it's now become a part of my life. In fact, I was telling this woman I work for yesterday, she said, tell me a prayer to do. And I told her this one. She goes, how do you have that memorized? I'm like, oh, girl. I wrote for like 11 months and I got 4 notebooks and I'm on my knees saying that thing all the time. It's like ingrained in me. And now meditation is also ingrained in me. And when I started to meditate, I would do it on and off for like 20, maybe 20 minutes, and then I wouldn't do it. And I would notice my day was better when I did. And so then I start getting into this person called Esther Hicks, and she channels in this source called Abraham. And they take me on the stage about 2-3 years ago. And they said, if we were in your human shoes, the one thing we would tell everybody is meditate. It's the most important thing that you can do for your entire life, because that's the only time we can get into you, source. And, you know, people would get on the stage and say, are you God? And they say, we are. But we're never going to say that word, because you humans mess that word up too. So we'll say source. But that's the only time that your brain quiets down and your guides can come in and try to clear some of your crazy thoughts, defects of character. And so I started meditating. I listened to Mooji. I did one this morning with Deepak and Oprah. It's a 21-day thing. I have them all saved on my YouTube thing. Different people in AA have sent me their meditations. And Abraham had said to me, you only need to do 30 minutes. You don't need to sit there for an hour. You don't need to go into a convent. And I started doing it, and I even set my alarm before I go to work, because to me, AA comes first, and I've been taught that. That's why I'm sober so long. I was taught you get a sponsor, not you should, imperative. And then when I learned about Big Book Step Study, and I did all that freaking work to clear my channel out, I now have to enlarge my spiritual life, or I go right back to who I was, because the defects of character are boom, 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 always there. I call it the ego side of my mind. The minute my eyes open, and I sponsor women, and a lot of the people will be like, well, you got it all together, Laura, you got the light and shit. I'm like, really? Because you give me 3 days without a spiritual practice, and cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs comes right in. You know what I'm talking about. So I have to, and I tell people, I tell on myself. I don't act like I'm pure as the driven snow, come on. I just got served papers by my ex-husband about money things, and I had to go pay a lawyer 2 days ago $6,000 that I really don't have, because I have to do this, and, you know, let that person fight it for me. For 24 hours, and I work a really strong spiritual program. Anyone that knows me knows this. I'm pretty tapped in. And for 24 hours, you wouldn't have wanted to be around me. I had to remain completely quiet, because what's the first thing the defects of character of the ego want me to do? Tell the friggin' story to as many people as I can. And that I learned through watching Abraham, and I've gone on Abraham cruises. I just went on one in April, and they're like, you need to stop your story. I also do Course in Miracles, where the woman that teaches it used to say to me when my daughter was getting beat up by her boyfriend, then her husband, Laura, you got to stop the story. You're actually getting her beat up. Your energy is so strong. We are pure positive energy, capped into skin suits. That's who we are. My energy is run, co-created by me and my source. If I'm connected into my source, God, then I'm good. My energy is good, and I can go with the flow, right? So when I do that 7-step prayer, I pray you should have all of me, good and bad. Why does it say good and bad? I never knew that until one lady was speaking one day, and I realized, oh, good and bad just simply means I don't know what's good and I don't know what's bad. Because I just told you my manipulation was to people please and kiss your rear end, and then if you didn't behave, it went bad. So I don't know good and bad, but my source does. And so that prayer I say every morning too. And then I also go, when I say good and bad, I say, take away all my defects of character, and I say my fears. I surrender all struggle, I surrender all control, and I surrender all suffering. Because I suffer when I try to control the thoughts that are going through my head. I know there's a million thoughts a day that run through a human's head, and the ego grabs certain ones and goes through my brain like, pulls out the file and goes, that person in front of you, remember? Someone did this to you when you were 5, right? We got it in our writing. Get them. And, right? And your mind goes, it's on, right? So your defects of character file has now been pulled. And this poor bastard standing in front of me might have just said, I don't like that dress on you. And you're like, do. And someone did that to me when I was 5 or 6 years old, and now this person's going to get my full wrath unless I come to center. And I will, a lot of times you'll see me, I'll go just like this, and I'll close my eyes, and what I'm doing is I'm looking at you and I'm saying, this is my brother or sister in the light. All they are doing is showing me what's triggering inside of me that I have not fully forgiven. I forgive it in myself, I forgive it in my brother or my sister. And I set them free, and I set me free because there's one light, and we're it. And I know that I'm a powerful co-creator. So how do I end up sitting in front of a lawyer giving her a $6,000 payment to fight my ex-husband on alimony? How does that happen? Well, simple. Because he says he's not going to pay it, and instead of me sitting still with Source and waiting to see what the next move is, as soon as my daughter graduates and the child support ends, I send one more email. Here's your Hail Mary. Here's my last control. Are you going to pay it? No, I'm not. So instead of sitting still, and my lawyer who did my, I'm only using this story to show you guys, my lawyer who did my divorce is Jimmy, who goes to AA, and he's a good friend of mine, and he mediated for us. And he, later on, when I finally got hold of him, after I got the ball rolling, as we say, he said, okay, on a spiritual level, you started the war. All you needed to do was stay still, Laura. I made a call to him, he didn't call me right back, so I was like, all right, it's on. So what do? I go to the Worcester courthouse, and I file a modification, and I have him served, and what do you think that's going to do to another human being? So I got the war going, right? So now he gets a lawyer to serve me and say, we ain't giving you crap, and now you're going to give us all this paperwork, 3 years of paperwork. And it's pissing me off, and you know why? Because my defective character, my ego, started that war. Not to say it was right what's happening, but you know what? We see it in all of our writing, right? Not to say someone doesn't do something or someone isn't an asshole. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we grab that shit and run with it, right? And we try to find others who will run with it with us. Now, if I call my sponsor, she's like, you're going to be fine. It's okay. You're good. You've been here before, Laura. Laura, God's bigger than all this. She goes into the whole thing. Or I'll even say, and I say it to my sponsees, go ahead and tell me your story, and then I'm cutting you. I don't want to hear it again, because you're only giving it energy, and it's going to kill you. It's going to spin itself out. And my defects of character, which I call my ego today, can grab anything, and start spinning it. And I know you all know what I'm talking about. You can be chugging along, oh, I'm doing good, yep, I'm lined up, awesome, and you're in your car, turn your radio on, boop, here comes the song to remind you about someone that did you wrong. Oh yeah. Wouldn't most humans just go, click, gonna change the channel? No, I'm gonna listen to that shit. Right? And the ego comes up and goes, yeah, you're such, you victim. No one has ever made you feel safe. And every time you've loved a man, hasn't he shit on your leg? Right? Am I right? Yeah. So we hear it. Or if you're a guy, didn't you give a woman everything and she just crapped all over you? You're unlovable. And it just keeps going. It's insane. And the funniest thing is, which isn't funny, but it is funny, I could pop your head off, I could pop your head off, I could pop my head on yours, and I could pop your head on mine, and it's going to think the same. Because we're crazy effing alcoholics. So it's going to think the same, right? And so I have to tell myself, my mind is so dishonest, it can't be trusted for 10 seconds. I have one of my sponsees who says when I'm thinking I'm in peril, holy crap, no kidding. And so I have to enlarge my spiritual life. It's crucial I enlarge my spiritual life because these defects of character are shown to me through actors. Like, you're not going to sit in your house, you guys can never talk to anyone again. And sit, and what doesn't it say in the big book? You can go to the polar ice caps and someone's either going to hand you some booze or piss you off somehow. So you just be best to do the work. So when someone tells me they're writing but they're not writing, I'm like, dude, I can tell you, I did 21 years of thinking I was in recovery. And I finished the process about 10 years ago, and so I will say today that I have, 21 years of sobriety and almost 10 years of recovery, and there is a huge difference. And I have to enlarge my spiritual life. It's part of holding these defects of character up to light, right? And a lot of times too, I listen to all kinds of stuff. There's an old spiritual guy called Ram Dass, and he likes to walk right up to it in his mind, like if it's fear or if it's anger, to walk right up to it in his mind and put his hands out and say, I send you light and I send you love, fear. Thank you. I acknowledge you and I see you. But I'm going to have to go back to God now. I'm going to have to go back to the light now. And it drops away. And it works. So all these things. And another thing I say all day long, every day, and I teach it to everyone I sponsor, and I've had people write it down because it was given to me. Everything I'm saying, by the way, is not me. It's been given to me. Like, I'm not some guru. So my whole thing all day long is guide me, show me, help me, heal me. Guide me to the path of least resistance source. Guide me, light up my path around the obstacles that I have put there. I make sure that I say I have put there, because I think someone else has put these obstacles in my path. No, they have not, because there's one mind, right? There's one light. So guide me around my obstacles. Guide me to the path of least resistance. Because I'm an alcoholic, I'm going to always go the hard route if I'm want to, because I'm a victim. And show me clarity, show me love, show me peacefulness, because that's all God is. He's none of this other crap. He doesn't even see this world. This is like our crazy makeup. This is an illusion, and we're in it. So show me clarity. Show me truth, show me love. Help me to stay centered. Help me to stay centered right here, right now. Which means, I say it all the time, my house could be on fire, but it's not on fire right now, but everything in my life was like on fire in my mind. Nothing's happening right now. I'm sitting with you beautiful people who are fully attached to my light. I am completely connected to every one of you. I don't care who you are me. I am you. That's where our common bond is, right? So help me to stay here with these beautiful lights. Heal me of my defects. Heal me of my past. Because the past is a graveyard of ashes. So whenever you want to pull the past up, whether it be good memories or bad memories, they're usually bad memories for us, say to yourself, you know what Source thinks about the past? Source doesn't think about the past, because this is an illusion anyway. So here's what God thinks about the past. It's a graveyard of ashes that you cannot resurrect. Try to bring back a dead person. Can't happen. Try to fix anything from your past. You cannot. So it's a graveyard of ashes. It's make-believe. It's done. But the minute we open our eyes in the morning, the defects of character are right there, the ego going, but let's go back to your past. Let's see what you did. No, we wrote this stuff down in 4. We read this stuff out on 5. We released it to God. And now it's time to put that crap away. Let that shit go. That's step 6 and 7. I am willing every day to let that crap go. Why? Because I want to be happy. For no other reason. Why do I sponsor women? Why do I come to these meetings? Because I don't like pain. In a nutshell. I like happiness. And I do all kinds of spiritual things to stay happy and centered, but I also have this beautiful boundary around me. I used to have walls. Now I have this boundary, and if you start screwing with me, even if I'm sponsoring you, even if I'm dating you, even if I'm married to you, whatever, and my vibration's up here. I know it is. I work very hard to keep it there. A lot of people's is here, and it doesn't make them bad. And we're in here, and we're doing the work, right? So we're raising our vibration, right? As we're doing this work and sitting here. Now, I meet most people, they're here. I can hold that light for you, even my middle daughter. I can hold that light for you as much as I possibly can. She'll even say, what are you doing holding the light? Because I do this all the time in front of her. And I go, we're at lunch, and she's telling me one of her bizarre things, and I'm like, She goes, holding the light? I'm like, And the only reason I'm putting up with you is because you came out of my body. And that's the truth. And I've stepped away from her for 8 months at a time. I am willing to cut anything from my life that is not vibrating or even trying to vibrate. It doesn't mean because you're down here, I'm gonna go, nope, you're cut, sorry, you're not where I am. But the way I'm taught through Abraham in Course in Miracles is if you keep your vibration high, that's your job with your source. If I meet someone, the first thing I say to them, especially if I'm dating them, just so you know, you are not responsible for my happiness, so you're off the hook. I'm not responsible for yours. You're not responsible for my unhappiness, and I'm not responsible for yours. I'm going to be happy with or without you because my happiness in my heart and soul comes from my source. Now that's going to piss a lot of people off. Not just alcoholics, because you're complete me. Let's put a ring on it. To me, it's ridiculous that I think there's a human out there that's going to complete me. I literally made them in my uterus and brought them out of my body. You guys will complete me, won't you? Nope, we're growing up. Sorry, bye. That's what happens. It's God's way of saying there isn't a human. Stop looking for one. There isn't a job. Stop thinking there's one that's going to complete you. I used to think all the time in A, if I have this, I'll be happy. Oh, I got that. I mean, if I have this, I'll be happy. Oh, I got that. I mean, if I have this, I'll be happy. And I'm given all these things, and I piss them away if I'm not connected to my source. So today, does it mean I can't have relationships? No, but my relationships are so beautiful today because I can love the lovables and not take them as my hostages to make me feel better and have to attack them with character defects. That's the best gift that I can give my children, to anyone I'm with, to my friends. I hang with women that think of my vibration. Now, if I'm up here in the way it's been put to me through Course in Miracles and Abraham and I feel it, if someone's in my life and they're not willing to vibrate up and they're going to stay here, they're going to drop away. And how they're going to drop away is they're just going to be like, you're a crazy, psycho, spiritual, woo-woo bitch. I'm done with you. And I've gotten that many times. Or my guides are going to keep pummeling me. And they're going to say, have you had enough? Are you going to let them go? Have you had enough? Are you going to walk away from your daughter? Do you have the guts to walk away from your own daughter? And I did. Because she was getting beat up. And then she married the guy. He went to prison, he came out, she married him. I had to step back. And so today, I've learned to just love her. And I tell her, I'm just going to love you. When she starts her story, I'm like, love, story, over there. Go find one of your crazy friends to spend that energy with. And then she'll say, Mom, I want what you have. Can you give me some of your books? And I hand her books. I go, it's not osmosis. I can hand you the big book. You're not going to get it. You got to work it. I can hand you Byron Katie. I took her on a spiritual cruise. She was a bitch the whole week because she's in light and it's pissing her off. Right? So we all know what I'm saying. We all have felt this. It's time to wake up. If you're sitting in this room, you're in the awakening. So you might as well just do the work, because otherwise it sucks to be you. And I've been down that path, and I don't want to suck anymore. So it's that easy. I mean, people are like, why do you do all these things? You go on these cruises. I went on a healing cure to Mexico in March. In April, I was on a 7-day cruise with Abraham. In October, I'm supposed to go to New York and see this guy, Kyle Gray, that talks to angels, because I love angels. I'm guided, right? Once you do the 4th and 5th, my channel's open, and my source, my guides just go, okay, this is next, this is next. Someone hands me a CD. Oh, you should listen to this. Everybody listens to Wayne Dyer, and that's how I first started getting into spiritual work, Wayne Dyer. But people hand me different things. So you should go to Course in Miracles, because my sponsor's been going to Course in Miracles for 30 years. She got me into it. Whatever you hand me today, if you hand me a book and go, hey, Laura, I read this. I think it'd be really good. You'd like it. Someone just said something about breath work. I've never heard of it, but someone told me it's really good. So I know today that my guides, are telling your guides to hand that to me. So I go, I'm going to take it. You know why I'm going to read it? Because my guides are in charge with your guides, and it's supposed to be handed to me. And if I read that book, it almost always has something to do with what I'm going through. I am guided. We are guided. We get Big Book step studies to guide us through the 4th step, right? But we are guided by something far higher than any sponsor or anybody. But how do you tap into that when there's so much crap? You clear it out. You do this work. You set yourself free. And I thank you all for being here.